If you're a B2B founder and you want to win on LinkedIn, you have to master your hooks. And at my agency, we produce over 250 pieces of LinkedIn content per week. So I have a pretty good idea of what works and what doesn't. What I want to do today is essentially walk you through a live copy editing session where I break down the 6 specific levers that you could use in your hooks to stop the scroll, give you a real life example. And by the end of this video, you should feel a lot more confident writing scroll stopping hooks. And like I said, I want this to be kind of like a live copy editing session. So there's a lot of like high level theoretical talk on copywriting, but what I want to do today is just really give you some tangible tactics that you could walk away from this video with. And to do that, I want to use an example of a hook from this guy named Adam Robinson. He's founder and CEO of B2B and retention.com. If you're in the B2B SaaS LinkedIn world, you've seen him, you know he's crushing it. He was an early client at Compound. He does his own stuff now. We helped him launch his LinkedIn presence and he is killing it. And his hooks are next level. So I'm going to break down one of them here so you can kind of see all that goes into creating a high quality scroll stopping hook. And there's a lot of intricacy in those first 1 to 3 lines of a LinkedIn post. And the founders who are best at LinkedIn really understand this. Because we don't realize is that if you don't stop the scroll and if you don't nail the hook, they're going to keep scrolling. They're not going to click see more. And it doesn't matter how good or how value dense or how shareable the body of the post is. If you can't catch your ICP's attention and can't get them to want to keep reading, you're kind of dead on arrival. So like I said, we're going to use a hook from Adam Robinson as the example here, but you can apply these strategies really wherever. And honestly, once you see this, you'll probably see this specific style of hook all over the place when you're on LinkedIn. I feel like a lot of times what happens as marketers is you see something work and then everyone tries to copy it. So what I would like you to do when you're watching this video is take the strategies, but use them in your own way. You don't want to copy the exact format. You can to some degree, but it's more about understanding the fundamentals of why this worked, not so much, hey, here's this format that Adam used. Let me go copy paste this. Because like I said, if you look across the LinkedIn timeline, you're going to see a lot of it. So getting into the actual copy editing session here, as you can see, Adam is a master of LinkedIn hooks, like I just mentioned. Just a few examples. This one has over 1,200 likes. This one has over 350 likes, almost 400. And more importantly, 79 comments and over 200 comments on this one. This one down here has almost 1,500 with over 400 comments. So an insane amount of engagement, not just likes and impressions, but also people commenting and more importantly, people within his ICP. So that all starts with stopping the scroll. Like I said, I have some good news for you. Adam's hook writing formula is pretty repeatable. And I want to go through a real life example here. Again, don't copy the exact formula, but understand why it works so you can adapt it to your own hooks. Now, in this hook, I bootstrapped our B2B from 0 to 1 million in 16 weeks. I'm going to get it to 10 million in ARR in the next 9 months with only 6 employees. Here's my 7-step playbook to make our B2B an 8-figure product with a tiny team. In that hook alone, I count at least 6 tactics in that 3-sentence hook. So just pause this video for a second and take a look and see if you can see what I'm seeing here. Now, getting into the actual levers here, and I call them hook levers. So there's essentially like tactics or strategies that you can use within a hook that make it more scroll stopping. And okay hooks will have one of them. Great hooks have 2, 3, 4, 5 plus of them. And Adam is a master of like stuffing as many hook levers as he can into 1 to 3 sentences. Again, hooks are very dense. Now, if we look at the examples here, the first one I can see is social proof. So Adam starts with, I bootstrapped our B2B from 0 to 1 million in 16 weeks. Right away, Adam answers the question on your mind of why should I listen to you? There's a lot of noise on LinkedIn right now. And if you're just saying, hey, here's how to bootstrap a startup from 0 to 1 million in ARR, why should someone stop scrolling? In Adam's case, he immediately answers that question, which is saying like, hey, I did this. This is why you should trust me. And there's this idea from Alex Hormozy that essentially says that you should never assume that your audience knows who you are. So if a post does well enough, it's going to get in front of a cold audience. And a mistake a lot of founders make is that they just think that everyone who's seeing their post already knows them. But again, if your post is doing its job, it's going to break out of that warm audience and reach a cold audience. And you want to give that cold audience a reason to trust you. And the thing here is you don't want to bury it. If you look at Adam's example, he answers the question in the very first sentence. You don't want to give the proof at the end of the post. That kind of defeats the purpose and someone might not keep reading if they don't know why they should trust you. So you want to lead with that. If you pay attention to this video, go back and watch the first few seconds, I immediately answer, hey, I produce 250 pieces of content per week for B2B clients. That's why you should trust me on LinkedIn content strategy. You want to introduce social proof. Social proof is extremely powerful. Now, hook lever number 2 is making hooks story-based because stories stop the scroll. And if you notice, the social proof section that we just ran over is positioned as a story. So it's not just saying, hey, here's how to scale a company from 0 to 1 million. It's how I did it. And that packaging of it as a story immediately makes it more digestible and immediately hooks someone in. So whenever you can position something as a story, whether whether it's a personal anecdote or a customer anecdote, or one example you'll see a lot on LinkedIn is, hey, I was on a call with X, Y, and Z. Here's what I learned. Or I've been on 50 plus sales calls with a certain ICP. Here were the trends that I was seeing. Whenever you can position something as a story, it makes it a lot more effective. So in this case, Adam is sharing the story of how he bootstrapped from 0 to million in 16 weeks, and also introducing the story of how he's going to take it to 10 million in ARR. So he starts with a story, and then, like I said, he introduces a new dragon to slay. So it creates that curiosity gap that someone has to keep reading to understand, hey, how is Adam going to do this? Like, how is he going to get from 1 to 10? Now, hook lever number 3 is specific numbers. It sounds silly, but this is a pretty old school copywriting tactic. Whenever you can include specific numbers in your headline, or in this case, the hook, it makes it a lot more compelling. So in this case, with Adam's hook, I count 8 instances of him using very specific numbers. And you get bonus points here if you use specific monetary numbers. This is why kind of building in public posts where you share revenue or any sort of like revenue, profit, money, essentially, it tends to perform better. But generally, even if it's not monetary figures, if you use specific numbers in your hook, like, hey, here's how I went from 12 to 25 employees in 17 months. Again, it sounds silly, but if you can use specific numbers in your hooks, I can almost guarantee they're going to perform better. The fourth hook lever is making a bold prediction, or more broadly, just polarization in general. A lot of hooks are too safe, and if you're taking the safe route, you're really not going to appeal to your superfans, and you're not going to repel people that you don't want anyway. You want to take a bold stance. I'm not saying to be polarizing for the sake of it, but you do want to kind of pick a hill and die on it, or be ready to die on it. And in this case, Adam is talking about how he's going to scale to 10 million in ARR. That's a pretty bold prediction. And by putting it out there directly, he takes a stance. And this is sort of built upon by this sort of tiny team angle. I know Adam has been sort of railing against raising VC and really all in on bootstrapping and that whole angle. And this is great for 2 reasons. Again, it attracts that group of people that really resonates with that messaging of not wanting to take VC money. And it also triggers the people who maybe did take VC money, or VCs themselves. And that polarization gets engagement both in terms of his super fans, but also people who get slightly triggered. And again, there's a certain level of polarization that you might want to reach and not go beyond. That's fine. That's a personal preference. But the more you can take a specific bold stance in your content, the better off you're going to be. Remember this, sterile content doesn't stand out. And if you can really internalize that and make sure that every single hook elicits some sort of emotion, again, it doesn't have to be rage bait, but just some sort of emotion, you're going to be in a good spot. And Adam does this by, again, making a bold prediction about how he's going to scale his company from 1 to 10 million in ARR, and more so do so with a tiny team. The fifth hook lever here is lists. So social audiences love lists. It's very easy for them to understand and digest. And when you use it in a hook, it creates a curiosity gap. When you say, hey, here's my 7-step playbook to X, Y, or Z, like Adam did in his hook, the audience has to keep reading to see what those 7 steps are. And it's a clearly defined set of steps. Whereas if he was just going to say, hey, here's how I'm going to scale from 1 to 10 million in ARR, that's fine. I think that would actually do pretty well as a hook. But adding in that layer of, hey, here's the exact 7 steps that I'm going to use, just adds that extra oomph. And again, the main takeaway here from this video is when you can go the extra mile in a hook and make your hook 10% better, 20% better, you can get sort of 5 to 10x the outcome. And real quick, before we get into the 6th and final lever here, if you're enjoying this video, go ahead and drop a like and subscribe down below, especially if you're a B2B founder or early marketer who wants to grow on LinkedIn and use LinkedIn as a channel for lead generation for your company. Now, the 6th lever I've got for you is creating an open loop. And this is really the job of the hook. An open loop is essentially this idea that you want to introduce something that makes the reader have to keep reading to close that loop. So a few examples of this might be, how is Adam going to scale to $10 million? That in and of itself opens up the question of, yeah, how is he going to do it? I have to keep reading if I want to learn how he does it. Then he introduces the idea of a playbook. So this exaggerates the first open loop, since now the reader wants to see what the playbook is, ideally so they can save it. Again, you want to make the open loops relevant to your ICP. So if the open loop was, what kind of puppy is Adam going to get? Probably not super compelling for early stage SaaS founders. But if the open loop is, hey, here's how I'm going to take this $1 million company and scale it to 10, that's pretty compelling for his ICP. And hey, here's the exact playbook that I'm going to use in 7 steps to make it happen. Again, it just compounds on that open loop. And one other like really nuanced tactic, or not nuanced, but really specific, and again, it almost seems silly, but you can use punctuation to create an open loop. So take, for example, in Adam's hook, the last bit here is, or the last conclusion of this is finished off by a colon rather than a period. So a period sort of signifies the end. And sure, I think if it was using a period here, it's still a strong enough hook where someone would want to keep reading. But by using that colon, it implies that there is a next part or there is an open loop that has to be closed. And you can use punctuation like colons or like ellipses, the three little dots at the end of the sentence, to keep the reader moving and move them down what we call the slippery slope in copywriting. Now, I want to show you a few other examples of Adam's hooks in action so you can see how he uses these levers just repeatedly over and over and over again. It doesn't have to be the exact same like sentence structure every time, but you can use these levers, whether they're story-based, specific numbers, anything like that, in your hooks just again and again and again, and they just work so well. So this one, we closed July 24 at 23.5 million in ARR, up 2.5% as a combined company, with Attention.com at 21.5 million in ARR and our B2B at 1.97 million in ARR. Here's what pain looks like as a startup founder. So if we look at these, again, story-based, we closed July 24 at X, Y, or Z. It introduces the story immediately. 2, specific numbers. You see 23.5 million, 2.5%, 21.5 million, 1.3%, 1.97 million, 64%. You just see specific numbers over and over again because people want to see that specific data. And I think in the context of Adam's post, this is why it works so well, because people feel like, and they are, getting a real inside look at the actual data, not just sort of high-level theoretical stuff. You see this open loop at the end. So here's what pain looks like as a startup founder. So what does pain look like as a startup founder? And literally using the colon, like we talked about, to create that open loop to want or to make a reader want to keep reading further. And in this case, he doesn't use a list in particular, but this mention of a timeline, again, is another way to sort of package the information in a way that is very easy for the reader to understand or to digest. So it's not just a brain dump stream of consciousness. When you can package something as a list, a framework, a timeline, a playbook, a blueprint, anything like that, it's just so much easier for the reader to wrap their head around and want to keep reading. And again, it creates an open loop. Now, one other lever here I didn't mention before, but as a bonus for sticking around all the way till the end, is negativity bias. This is just copywriting 101. It is extremely powerful, and I see this work over and over again. But when you can tap into negativity, this is the whole idea of why mainstream news networks tend to be just very negative. Humans are wired to seek out negativity and conflict and sort of a safety mechanism for us, but you can use that in your copywriting. And you don't want to overdo this, again, like the polarization piece. You don't want to just kind of become known for negativity. That's not the brand that you probably want as a founder, but you can use it sparingly in your copy, like in Adam's example here. Here's what pain looks like as a startup founder. Like, okay, pain in all caps, like that's very like, whoa, what's going on there? And it makes someone want to keep reading. It's the same idea of like mainstream news, or why when you drive past a car wreck, everyone looks because they want to see what happened. So with this guide, we've just equipped you with 6 to 7 different levers that you could use in your hooks. And if you do nothing else this week in your LinkedIn content, but just really meticulously go through and make sure that you use at least 2 to 5 hook levers in each of your posts. Okay, hooks use 1, that's fine. But a lot of the best hooks that I see at a minimum use 2, if not 3, if not 4. I would say more than 4 or 5 is a little bit overkill. But what you'll notice again with Adams and all of the best hooks on LinkedIn is they're very dense. They pack a lot of punch into those first 1 to 3 lines because they understand, the writers understand how important those first 1 to 3 lines are. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, drop a like down below and subscribe and comment and let me know what you want to see from me going forward. And now if you want to use LinkedIn as a B2B founder, or if you're an early marketer and you want to get your founder active on LinkedIn, I am going to link a video on screen right now that goes through our entire playbook for how to start from scratch. It walks you through step by step, pretty much a free course. It's over an hour. Go over there, check it out. Let me know what you think. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. And I will see you in that next video.